All right, we are here at my tiny DIY worm bin, and we're going to check on three things. First, we want to check on the mite population. I think we put a pretty good dent in it. I laid down some bread, and like I showed in my last video, did that a few times just to kind of put a dent in it, but it's going through a cycle, so I think that cycle's on the downswing. We're also going to check on the blended bedding that we had put in here from egg cartons and drink trays. And I actually think I want to use that for a little while in upcoming feedings because some of this cardboard and paper scraps I want to get broken down a little bit more because it's adding so much volume. And then finally, we're going to try a broccoli experiment. So let's go ahead and start digging in here. And I'm just going to kind of pull off the top dryish layer. And probably see I've got some long sleeve shirt on, which I usually don't wear because it's a little bit colder in Florida right now. So I'm just going to kind of pull this to the side. I'll try and remember to pull that back on, but let's try and dig down into that feeding zone. And that last feeding we did was mostly lettuce, some from my garden, and we put in 2 big lettuce stalks. And I'm already seeing the worms right down the middle here pretty well. You can see them right through there. Lots of worms all throughout, which is great. And I don't see too many mites, which is a good thing. The other thing we're going to check on is the different bracelet packaging that we had in here. And we had a burlap sack. So I want to check on that too, see if there's been any progress in there. And we had actually put some food in it also. And here it is. We've got some worms in it and around it. And let's see inside if they've eaten everything that was in there. I think we may have put a little carrot in there. We definitely put some lettuce. So I still think I see some of the fibers of the lettuce, and there's a worm down in there. I'm not sure if you get a good picture of that. But this thing is still trucking right along and not feeling like it's breaking down too much. So I'll set that aside also and bring that back in here. And let's keep digging to see if that bedding disappeared, because if it did, if that bedding is good as I think it is, then that might be kind of an answer to how to control bedding towards the latter parts of a bin's life, where you still want to add a little bit of bedding, but you don't want it to bulk up, because it just, when you blend it like that, it gets so much surface area on that bedding and the worms can just attack it. So I think it's doing really good. And look at all these fat worms, chunky red wigglers here. This bin is all red wigglers. We'll just kind of pull from this side and see what we've got going. The moisture feels really good. Doesn't feel overly damp, and it certainly doesn't feel dry. And you can just see all kinds of worms throughout. This big old fat, deep, dark one right here. Love finding the worms when you dig in like that. And of course, this isn't necessary to dig in like this. I do it because I like to aerate and I like to check the bottom just to make sure there's no patches of fermentation or something like that from food. And I want to make sure that the worms are eating about as fast as I'm feeding them. I really don't want to have too much excess food in between feedings. This side's looking great. No pooling on the bottom. We're really getting to close to, I think, 50-50 castings to bedding here. It's looking pretty good. Here's a grape stem that just, these things take forever, but I always like to keep them in there. This bin is 76 days old from when we started it, with about 500 worms. And it's been 7 days since the last feeding. I'll go ahead and go in here in the middle and dig through. So I think last time when we started with 50 to 100 worms, it took us about 170 days to get to full castings. I don't expect it to be that long because we're starting with 500. And this is the same population, it's just gotten bigger and bigger, or I should say more and more. Lots of worms all throughout. They're just all over the place. They have completely annihilated the feeding that we gave them. I mean, pretty huge lettuce stalks, which are mostly water, but they ate it 100% because I put one here and I think I put one over here, and I don't see any signs of either one. So let's go ahead and look on the other side. And still a little bit of that drink tray. Actually, this is part of the bracelet tray. I'll just keep ripping them up as I run into it, but this may be part of the drink tray. Just continue to increase its surface area. Last half, or last third I should say, over here. Again, here's the underside of the worm. I think when we put it like that, yep, darker purple or red on that side. Oh yeah, every time I dig in, you can see him squirming away. So there's a lot in here. This is probably, for this size bin, this is probably the perfect amount, 500. Maybe let it increase to 1,000, but really that's all you need for a bin this size. And this bin is perfect for like under the kitchen sink, or if you live in an apartment or there's only one or two of you in your household, a bin like this would do perfect for getting rid of your food scraps and a little bit of your paper and cardboard waste that you might have. And then if you've got a garden or a balcony garden or indoor plants, this would produce perfect amount of castings for you to use for that. And again, I don't see any of that lettuce stock that we had in here. Some more of the bracelet tray right there, but just keep helping them out there. So I think we're probably good here. Yep. And we'll go ahead and set up the feeding zone. And for this particular feeding, we're going to do broccoli. Now, I don't usually put a lot of broccoli in, and I usually don't put it into this bin. And that's because broccoli can tend to smell, just like if you were to leave it out. If you put just enough broccoli that they eat all of it, then you won't get any smells. But the amount I'm going to put in is probably a little bit more than they'll be able to eat within a few days. So the experiment that I'm going to do is kind of a way to cut up the broccoli. And let me show you. So this has been frozen and actually thawed and then frozen again. But this is a broccoli stalk, just like you would get at your fresh produce, pull out broccoli, and this is the stalk. Now what I did was I cut this stalk in half, or one very similar to it, and of that half, one half I cut, like this and made these little discs, and the other half I cut long ways. So we're gonna put these in and these in. Both got 2 cuts, or I should say cut in half and then cut, so 3 cuts. And we'll see which ones the worms get to faster. And I'm going to save this piece, and I'm going to put these 2 in the burlap sack. So let's go ahead and put down some of our bedding. And again, this is just blended bedding from the drink tray and egg cartons. All right, so let's put in the broccoli. I've just been informed by the executive producer that I've been saying bracelet tray. I don't know why, but we got a kick out of that. So we'll put that there, and then let me get the burlap sack, and we'll put those other 2 pieces of broccoli in there. 1 and 2. And I'm actually going to set those right there in the middle, and I want to put this on top. And then we'll get our coffee and our grit right there. Cover that up, and the coffee is just another food source for them. And then we'll do the grit, which is helpful for them in their digestion and also helpful in my garden and helps me get rid of my eggshells instead of throwing them away. So I like to use all that. That's one of the joys of having a worm bin, is you're preventing stuff from going to your landfill. You are raising a little pet, although you can use them for fishing also, but you're also getting the castings for your garden. So I think different people raise worms for different reasons, and I kind of use them for all of the above. But I think this is a good little feeding for them, and we'll check in on it in about 7 days. But I'm pretty happy with how things are going. The mites have decreased. Certainly the potworms from a while ago have decreased. And we'll go ahead and put that bedding back on. I actually wanted to put that over the feeding zone, but I forgot about it. We'll just spread that back on top. We'll put this newspaper on top, and we will call it a feeding. So I hope everybody is having a great day, and happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.